In this tutorial, we are going to make a highly customizable weapon shop device. If you want more videos like this, don't forget to like, subscribe and share. If you want to access the code or the assets of this video or are looking for help, you can check our Patreon in the description. Let's continue the tutorial. In this tutorial, we are going to showcase the weapon shop device. So, first of all, I'm going to talk about what you need to know for just using this device, and then I'll go into specifics of implementing it if you are interested. But first, I will show you how to use it. So, of course, we have many editable variables that you need to use for this device, that you need to set. But before that, we also have textures. So by default, this weapon shop device uses a bunch of textures, right? But if you want to use your own textures for these weapons and items, then you need to swap these textures. So you should not do additions or removals from these arrays. You should only change the textures, right? Don't increase the array element count or decrease the element count of these arrays. So these are the arrays that you need to be concerned with. Also, you can set these shield and health textures to use the icons that you want. Alright, so first, for each item we define it with an item data. So we have an array of it. We don't have an array of it. So the weapon shop has a constant size. So we have 5 sidearm items. So these could be pistols, but these could also be grenades and stuff. And also, so we made a Valorant style shop, right? So we have 2 SMGs, we have 2 shotguns, we have 4 rifles, 2 snipers, and 2 heavies. So these could be rocket launchers and stuff, right? So, and for the heavies, by default we have an RPG and a bomb launcher. So these are all item data. So for each item data we have the price. So, and then we have the UI texture size ratio X and Y. So these are basically, because since you can set your own icons, your icons might not fit well by the default size and ratio we use. So you can actually by changing these ratio values, you can actually change the size of your icons for all of the items that you have in your shop. Also, the item grantor index. So we are just using one item grantor for all the items in this shop. So you just need to set the corresponding index for this item in this item grantor. So then we have all these items that you need to set, right? So for the health and shield, so these are a bit special. So again, that's why, since they're a bit special, we don't have an item data for that. But basically, this is almost everything that is inside an item data. So we have a price for the shield, and we have the shield amount. So the amount of shield that the player is going to get by purchasing the shield. You can set this to whatever value you want. And again, we have the icon size ratios. And then for the health, well, we set a health amount, but it's actually, this is bonus health amount, right? And this is also bonus shield as well. I mean, if you, from the island settings or something, if you set the shield default shield value to 50, then this will actually put on top of that 50 value. And this will also this health purchase also going to increase the health from the base value of the health that the player has. So if you set this to 25, the player is going to have, if the player has a default health of 100, they're going to have a health of 125. So you can use these 2 triggers to open the shop. So you can use this trigger to open the shop for the triggering player, and you can use this trigger to open the shop for all the players, right? And then we have the shop display seconds. So UI size ratio. So you can basically set this ratio to increase or decrease the entire size of the shop UI. So it is highly customizable. So you can actually, by just tweaking, like decreasing and increasing this value, you can increase and decrease the size of the entire shop UI. So we didn't for this one we didn't use the input mode of the UI, like input mode of the verse UI. We instead, because that was a little buggy, so instead we especially on consoles and mobile, so we have used like input trigger devices. So you need to bind all these input you need to set all these input trigger devices, since we have like the shop is on a grid. So these inputs will allow the user to traverse on the shop, and also two inputs to purchase or exit the shop. Of course, if you don't, so what you can do, if as you can see, we have both options. So the timer the shop also closes after the timer ends, also after like the player like exits from the shop. If you want to disable one of them, like you can simply just not set this shop timer, and then like set this display seconds to like some really high value, so that it practically never ends. But if you want to like disable this, then all you need to do is just not set this device, right? By this I mean the player's ability to manually close the shop. So we have the traverse sound. So this is basically a little sound effect that plays that each time like the player goes from one item to another item on the shop. So this is the purchase sound. This is played when the player purchases an item. So we have two gold conditional buttons. So this we are not using any custom money or anything. We are using Fortnite Gold. So this gold conditional button is used for counting the gold the player has, and this one is used for spending the gold for an item. So basically all you need to do is have two conditional buttons, and on the first condition you need to have a gold with the amount of 1. I'll also show all the device settings in the scene. So we also have the shop timer. So this is basically for the UI, for showing the timer on the UI. And yeah, then if we this was all the things you needed to use this device. But if you go into the implementation details, well, there's a lot, right? This was a long one. So first we have bunch of initialization stuff, right? So we have all these arrays, we have all these constant values. So basically we are putting those editable values in an array, so we can handle them easily. So we initialize the textures, then we listen to all the events that we use. So let me actually close all these functions and open them one by one while explaining them. So this is the exit function. We just call the shop close, and let me actually go to shop close directly. Here we close the shop, so we unregister from all these devices. So we mark all the shop cells as unpurchased, right? And then we release a player from the stasis. So we put the player in a stasis so that they can move, right? Because that's actually important, because since we are listening to the input events, player would be moving around while trying to use the shop. Maybe they don't want that, so we're putting them in stasis. So here we reset the timer. So let's continue on next function. So on press purchase, this is a purchase function that's called after the purchased input. So we don't allow multiple purchases for the same item. We return if that's the case. and here we check for the gold, and we spend the gold using the conditional button. Then we mark the cell as the mark this UI cell as purchased, so this is just for the visuals. And then if this is if this is an item that we should be granting, then we just grant it. If this is a health or shield purchase, then we set the shield or the health of the player accordingly. Then we save this cell as purchased, and then we play the purchase sound. So these are just for the traversal. So here we just call the inner function while and giving it the required row change and column change parameters, right? So if it's press up, then the row is going to change by -1 and column is not going to change, and it follows along with the others as well. So on press direction, so this is basically where we do the UI grid traversal. So our shop is not like a perfect rectangle. Like we don't have equal amount of rows on each columns, so it requires a bit of handling logic with the indexes, right? We can't just basically increase and decrease the indexes within a bound. So we have a so that we play the traverse sound. So we have a green overlay color that we set for the currently selected cell on the UI. So here we hide the current cell, and at the end we show the new cell that we traversed to. So here we are basically increasing we were basically doing our indexing arithmetic, and we have edge cases for the first column and the last column, because first column has 5 rows and the last column has 2 rows, and in the middle columns they have 4 rows, so we need to handle for those cases. So that's what we do. We set the new column and new row values, and then, as I said before, we set this cell as this is the current cell. So here, for when this is called, when this triggered for all called, we just for each player call the triggered per agent. Oops, that was wrong. Okay. Oops, that got me down a bit. Okay. All right. So here if this is the first time, we just create the canvas and set it for this player, and then we get the canvas again, we get the player UI, we set it on the screen, we listen all to the input triggers, and then we set the first cell as the currently active cell, and then we put the player in stasis so they don't move. Then we start the timer, but we also call the late shop close. So we don't actually, as I said, we use the shop timer only for actually the HUD, so we don't actually listen to its completed event or not. So in the late shop close, we just sleep for the shop display seconds, and then we close the shop. And in shop close, basically we unmark all the cells, right? But so I already talked about this, so that's it. It got me a bit confused, but no, I already talked about this. All right. So in the mark cell, so this is, this is completely UI code. So basically, it's always the most complicated part with worse when you're doing UI, right? Usually the UI is the most complicated part. So here we are. So let me actually. So here we are actually we are either setting it as purchased or not purchased. So depending on that, we are setting its like color blocks opacity, and its like text. If it's purchased, we are setting the text as owned, and we are setting the color block opacity to something like close to 1. If it's not owned, then we are setting the text to price and the opacity to like 0.0, because we don't want that like overlay color. So actually this is the entire purpose of this function. But just there's a lot of, like getting that widget from that widget and getting that widget from that widget, because we have a hierarchy of widgets. So this is basically a similar thing. Like here we don't like this is like a small version of Markcell. So here we don't set the text. Here we just set the opacity value of this like overlay block to the value given by this parameter. Also, we have some additional parameter that says be enforced, because if this cell is marked as like purchased, we don't actually want to set it to something else unless we're closing the shop. So this be enforced value is telling us, okay, if this is purchased, you should not like change it, or you should change it even if it's purchased. So row call to slot. So this is a like arithmetic function. So it takes the row index and column index, and it basically turns like calculates the slot index that corresponds for the like canvas slot in the shop canvas. And this one is just by looking at the row index and column index, it just finds the corresponding item data for that cell. Like is this a sidearm, is this a rifle, or what is it? So it just, depending on the index, it just like takes that like corresponding array, and from that array it takes that element, right? Like it's just straightforward, just a bunch of things to consider, but it's just the same logic. So here the shop canvas, so we put the entire shop canvas in a larger canvas, so it's easier to handle and position. So this is the actual function that creates the shop canvas. So so these values are for so for each weapon, for each cell, we have a background like texture, and these basically ensure that because remember that I said for like one row, like for one column we have 5 cells, like for one we have 2, etc. So basically this ensures that all the rows, these mathematical calculations ensure that all the rows have the same like vertical size, and you can see that UI size ratio. So like this is the editable value that we have created. So by setting this, you are basically like changing the outcome of all these calculations, and that changes the size of the entire shop canvas. Now of course here we have, since this is almost the most top level of the canvas hierarchy, here we are just creating the columns. So here we are just creating one column and the other, and that's all we do. Actually, we just give them the appropriate offsets, and then we just call the create column canvas function. And then in the create shop column canvas, so it gets the how many cells, how many items are going to be shown on this. So it gets that value by just using this length of this array. So in this array, in this item data array, it has all the information it needs, like what is the price, what is the icon, what is the icon ratio, size ratio, right? And these are this is the background texture itself, and then the size, and also the other offset values, these offsets in between the cells. So we first put the title, so is it a rifle, is it a shotgun or something like that. So we put the title, and then we, in a for loop, we just lay out the item cells one by one, from going top to bottom. So only thing we do is we just increase the top offset at each iteration using the index value, and for each one we create a shop cell canvas. And you can imagine, like, if we didn't do this canvas, this UI, by using this like sub canvas method of like using another like function where we create each like sub widget as a separate canvas, like this would be much more complicated. And in the cell canvas, as I said, we have a like background texture, then we have the icon texture, like the weapon icon, then we have a price text, like this is going to be the price text at start, but if it's owned, it's going to say owned, so this is on the bottom left. And then we have the overlay color block, even though it's at the last, I'm saying overlay, but it's like this is at the most back level, so this is actually you can see that 0 to 0. So this is actually like background color block. So at first it was like overlay, so it's just it's like not background, but it's like underlay, let's say, something like that, because it doesn't always stay visible. It stays visible only when like you purchase the cell or you are actively on this cell. And that's all. Actually a very overwhelming thing, but when you like divide it into pieces, it becomes more comprehensible. Well, and to be honest, the hardest part of this was actually like the fact that it's not a perfect rectangle. So the fact that the rows of columns have different lengths, and that actually made the indexing a lot more complicated than it should be. Well, if all the columns had like in a same amount of rows, then actually this would be a much more, I mean, the canvas, don't get me wrong, the UI creation code will be still the same, but some of the index handling would be easier. But yeah, these parts will all be the same. Now let me like slowly scroll up so that you can see all the code and write it yourself. Of course, if you don't want to write it manually, you can just always purchase this code from our Patreon, or you can also purchase the assets from the Patreon, or you can get access to them using a membership, but you don't have to. You can just write it by following along the video. All right, now okay, that's row equal to item data, row equal to slot, set color block value, mark cell, that's shop close, late shop close, shop display triggers. This is press direction and the other input event functions, right? And this purchase function, right? Then we come to on begin, right? Then we come to our variables and our editables, and then we have our text arrays. All right, now I'll continue with the scene, and I'll show you how you set up the scene. All right, now first, before going into the devices, let me show you the assets for this. So in the textures directory, don't forget to put your textures in the textures directory, and you need to create it first, of course, so that the verse code can access your textures. So all right, so first, so we also have this from the other tutorial. So all these are from this tutorial. So we have like health icon, shield icon. So for each one, we also have the title, like heavy rifle shield, blah blah. Also we have, as I said, we have like 5 pistols, like 4 rifles, 2 snipers, 2 heavy weapons, 2 SMGs and 2 shotguns. So we have icons for all those. But of course, you know, you can use yours always. And we actually made for this one, we made it really easy to scale like your own edit like icons as well. So just by setting these ratio X and ratio Y, you can easily like set the size of your icons. But if you want to use ours, then you can just, you know, get them from our Patreon. So all right, now let me go through the editables one by one. So first we have the shop item granter. So in the shop item granter, so this item granter, don't forget to set this to keep all. So we just have the items laid out so that we have the weapons laid out so that the weapons of each texture matches these items. So first we have the, like, it is the same as it's laid out here on the editable. So we first have the first 5 sidearm weapons. So first we have the first 5 pistols, then we have 2 SMGs, 2 shotguns, 4 rifles, and then 2 snipers and 2 heavies. So of course, actually you can have like different kind of, you don't have to like match the indexes one to one. So since we have a field here, you can actually make it like it could be different, but I think this is easier to handle. So we can just, you know, you see this goes like 0, 1, 2 and it follows like that. Of course you can set the price to whatever you want as well. And for this one we set the ratio XY for all the icons to 1 and 1. But if you want to, you know, fine tune it, you can change those values. Then we have the like shield price and shield amount. So for this one I just set them 150. So I also tweaked the icon size ratios a bit, and the same for the health one. And then for the shop display triggers, so I just set the triggers, nothing on there. So I just set it here, I set the shop display seconds to 60, and the UI size ratio I set it to 0.45. I think that's a good enough size. Covers the good amount of the screen. You'll see it in a minute. Then we have the input. So for the input devices, let me show those. So first, like the traverse input devices. So for these, so this is the down input. So I have forward back, and then I set it to negative, and then in the HUD description I just write down, right? And the same for up, but since it's up, it has axis direction positive, and for left it is left, right, and negative. For right it is left, right, and positive. And for the purchase, it's a fire input, and it's just this purchase. Of course, I mean, by the way, you can just set these to whatever inputs that you want, right? It doesn't matter actually. You just it doesn't matter from a perspective of the shop device. And then we have the shop exit, and I just made it the right click, so the target input. All right. So then we have the sounds, the traverse sound, the purchase sound, and then the conditional buttons, the conditional button to count gold. So we have here, so key items required is 1. There's just one item, and it's gold. All right, and then anyone, like, can be used by anyone. That's important. And the same thing with the spend. It's the same thing. Same configurations, right? And then the last thing is the timer device. So I have it, so where is it? So as I said, I use it just for the HUD. So you just set it to show on HUD, and of course you need to use it to apply to the player, because I use it like separately for each player, and that's it actually. And then probably make sure these activating team is to any, and that's all the devices you need to set for this. Of course you need to, I mean, I didn't show these details, but you need to like set bunch of item data here, right? You need to set prices and stuff that you find appropriate for your game. All right, that's all cool. Now let's get to play this thing and see this thing in action. All right, now I have 0 gold, so if I come here to trigger this, you can see that the shop is opened, and I can like traverse through the shop in any way that I want. And since I'm using the input trigger device for this, like this will work for like any type of console or even mobile. So I can try to purchase, but it will fail because I have no money. But of course I can buy this gun for like 0 gold, so I can buy that. And now I'll just exit by right clicking. So I'll drop this weapon. So I'll get some money. I'll get some gold here. Okay, I think 400 is enough. Now, of course, you can see that I can't move because I remember that I put the player in a stasis. I mean, that was a good choice to do, because if I didn't, then because of the custom input, the player would move around. So all right, I actually I pressed on right click by mistake. So you can see on the left that like input actions are written for each input. So I can now like purchase this one, for example, right? I can even buy this one, and it marks with green the purchase ones. Then I can buy the shield, or also I can buy the health, right? So my health is increased. So you can customize all of these. Also, you can actually, if you don't like the timer, you can actually remove it by simply just not setting the timer device, right? So okay, I just pressed right click again. So that's why it's closed. All right, and actually this is it. This is a really highly customizable like shop device, weapon shop device that you can use in your like any kind of shooter maps, whether it be TPS or FPS. So that was all. To access the code or the assets of this video, you can check our Patreon. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and share if you enjoyed, and also leave a comment on what tutorial you would want to see next. See you later.